NASCAR's willingness to embrace social media has made the sport more accessible than ever before, but it's come at a cost. Whereas drivers in the garage area were once afforded a base level of privacy and generally kept away from any sort of drama involving the younger or weirder side of the fan base, intricate parts of the sport are now just a few clicks away. It's now possible for any average Joe to cozy up to players in the industry and make a mess of things if they're not careful. For teams in the NASCAR Xfinity Series and NASCAR Camping World Truck Series, this can pose a serious problem. There's an inherent need for sponsorship money, but very few takers given their status as a minor league, which results in teams taking a leap of faith with someone they're not super familiar with, or a brand just getting off the ground. Sometimes it actually works out, and it makes for a really cool story. But these conditions also create a perfect storm for Joseph Lombard, a NASCAR Xfinity Series sponsor whom most people would prefer you didn't talk about, because several years later the entire situation is just sad, bizarre, and creepy.
The more conservative than the conservatives.
Keep her steady,
Yeah.
buddy.
Wow.
The leader's a second ahead.
So, who is Joseph Lombard? Well, he's a nobody, and I mean that in all sincerity. Under the YouTube channel N2SC4R, Joseph was the first guy to really make it big playing NASCAR console games on YouTube. Dating all the way back to 2012, nothing he uploaded was all that special. It really is just him with a webcam or capture software, sitting in his bedroom playing NASCAR games with his brother. But by virtue of being the first and getting lucky with the YouTube algorithm, he amassed something like 60,000 subscribers, which is really, really good. Most of these subs were Generation Z NASCAR fans just getting into the sport and wanting an innocent place to hang out on YouTube. Joseph provided that. And there's no catch here with this. This really was just an innocent YouTube channel. And this is where the story probably should have ended. Being on the autistic spectrum, Joseph could have coasted quite nicely on his YouTube earnings from entering the scene at just the right time, and found a low-stress job to keep him occupied during the day when he got bored with sitting at home. The trajectory of Joseph's life changed, however, when he revealed to his YouTube community on July 29th, 2017, that his dad was killed earlier that morning while helping a stranded motorist. Immediately, there was an outpouring of support from Joseph's rather sizable community as, coupled with his eccentricities, there was a bit of concern he'd have difficulty processing the grief associated with such a traumatic event. But Joseph, to his credit, pulled himself up by his bootstraps and just continued the YouTube grind, indulging in more NASCAR video games.
I just got some bad news this morning that my dad was killed.
Unbeknownst to his audience, Joseph and his family became extremely wealthy almost overnight. Speculation on this varies from what some believe is a life insurance payout to potentially selling off his father's stocks in his old company, though the details of this have never been made public. As devastating as this must have been for Joseph and his family, once grief counseling came to an end, Joseph was left with more money than he knew what to do with and had the freedom to pursue whatever lifestyle he wanted to. Now, there are a few really cool routes he could have taken. As a die-hard NASCAR fan, Joseph could have become an amateur racer himself at his local short track, trying his hand at a safe, entry-level class like sport compacts or street stocks. He realistically would have done fine and been no better or worse than the other weekend warriors out there. And with the rumored financial windfall, he probably could have done this for a really long time. It was also no secret that Joseph spent long hours in his room binging on video games. There probably wasn't a girl in the picture, and it's not hard to imagine he was kind of lonely. With his new financial situation, nothing was really stopping this guy from going to the strippers once every couple of weeks, or signing up for OnlyFans and finding a girl he liked, or finding someone his age that was into the sugar daddy dating lifestyle. Now, it's not common, but it's a thing. Point being, there were a couple of normal avenues to cope with being lonely. Where Joseph's money actually went and how Joseph used it as an avenue to satisfy his loneliness is where the story gets weird and just really uncomfortable. On March 13th, 2018, Lombard announced he would be sponsoring Ryan Sieg's NASCAR Xfinity Series car for the race at Auto Club Speedway, claiming a man named Jason Jacoby had encouraged him to do so. Yes, that Jason Jacoby. a schizophrenic NASCAR fan who is currently in jail for stalking his ex-girlfriend and went viral for uttering bizarre threats directed at NASCAR drivers.
I'm going to take matters into my own hands and cut off Dale Jarrett's hand here with this saw.
This person somehow convinced Joseph Lombard to start showering a random NASCAR team with cash, and Joseph just went along with it. Complicating things, Joseph didn't really have any sort of meaningful business venture of his own to promote and try and get a return on investment, so he was really just throwing money at an Xfinity Series team. What I'm getting at here is really bizarre. For a period of time in 2018, a professional auto racing series was slowly being infiltrated by schizophrenics role-playing as NASCAR drivers, and young kids on the autistic spectrum blowing their financial windfall. Xfinity Series teams in a financial bind were forced to play ball with this bizarre, unprofessional, borderline predatory ecosystem because at the end of the day, the checks cleared. And nobody was really mature enough to step in and say, hey, don't take this kid's money, this is fucked up, he just lost his dad and some schizo is manipulating him.
Sieg's got a new sponsor on board, Lombard Brothers Gaming. If you want to play racing games, these kids will race against you.
Addicted to this lifestyle of being a small-time celebrity in the garage area and getting VIP access to NASCAR races that he'd previously only watch on TV, on April 4th, 2018, Ryan Sieg Racing announced Lombard would sponsor 4 more races that season. This was only the beginning. The Xfinity team sponsorship continued into 2019, with Lombard also partnering with super late model driver Ryan Vargas. And in doing so, Lombard almost destroyed sponsorship in auto racing as we know it, but thankfully nobody noticed this. You see, Lombard didn't put his name on Ryan Sieg's car, but rather Lombard Bros Gaming. This was a secondary YouTube channel he had started with his brother Zach years earlier that was largely dormant. Because YouTube metrics are public and the Lombard Bros channel was so small, we'd actually be able to see firsthand if there was any increase in the number of people visiting this YouTube channel immediately after the Xfinity race, and gauge the exact ROI from sponsoring an Xfinity Series car. This answered a really important question. Just how many eyes were on your product if your race car was on TV? With the Xfinity race taking place on March 17th, their podcast episode published on March 22nd received just 365 views. A Rocket League stream that same day had just 70 views. Because Joseph promoted this channel to his subscribers long before landing on Sieg's race car, it's entirely possible that not a single person in the stands at California, nor a single person watching the race at home, actually looked into what Lombard Bros Gaming was anytime the car appeared on TV. The handful of views instead came from a mix of spam bots and small children who followed Joseph's second channel as a courtesy sub, which accidentally revealed to the world that the return on investment for sponsoring a random Xfinity Series car is precisely zero. Lombard essentially put a website ticker on somebody's race car, and through YouTube view counts we could track just how many people came to visit his website. Nobody did. Only a year prior, Nature's Bakery had sued Stewart Haas Racing, claiming SHR misled them about the returns they would experience from sponsoring a race car. I'm not saying the two are related, but where there's smoke, there's fire. With no return on investment, Lombard was essentially paying to be a low-tier celebrity inside the NASCAR garage area, but as a result, this blurred the line between fantasy and reality. Lombard, it seems, became convinced that the more money he spent, the more it would establish his credibility and people would want to associate with him, but this really didn't pan out the way he thought it would, especially when it came to women. As documented extensively on Twitter, Lombard began aggressively throwing himself at younger female NASCAR fans to the point where it would show up on other people's timelines and be this unspoken thing that everyone just sort of watched play out. Just as NASCAR was making a push to be a more inclusive, more diverse sport, and teenage girls felt comfortable jumping on social media to talk all things NASCAR, there was this Xfinity team sponsor who was sitting on social media waiting for them like a Venus flytrap to awkwardly hit on them. And as you can imagine, he got busted. After months of rumors and speculation that Lombard had a bit of a problem, In the fall of 2020, an underage girl came forward and basically said, yeah, this dude sent me dick pics. Lombard vanished. All of his YouTube channels are inactive. His Twitter is inactive. The Lombard Bros gaming channel has been renamed to just Joyce Lombard, which is presumably his mom, and his mom appears to have made one of the last posts on the accompanying Twitter account. He's disappeared. Except he hasn't. A YouTube channel run by bail enforcement agent Dustin McGee claims to have received a cease and desist letter on October 21st, 2021 from an online defamation firm representing Joseph Lombard. This comes over a year after Lombard was publicly exposed on Twitter for sending illicit messages to minors, and quite frankly, long after anyone cared about him. No further action was taken. This lone letter serves as the only tangible proof Joseph Lombard is still out there. Once a NASCAR Xfinity team sponsor, and once the owner of a fairly successful YouTube channel, Joseph now spends his fortune threatening random people on YouTube with legal action.